there everyone! Today I'm going to be sharing with you a skin coloring Copic tutorial using the new May Spellbinders Stamp of the Month kit. I've already colored all of the little flowers and stuff, so this is going to be strictly a skin coloring tutorial. I'm going to be using E13, E11, E00, E000, and R32 and R30 for her cheeks and her lips. I've stamped my image using Memento black ink, and I've stamped onto my Copic Express It blending card, which is my favorite paper to color using my Copics. So let's go ahead and get started. Before I get started coloring, I just want to take a second to mention why I always color using a slight angle to my videos, and it's because I want you guys to be able to see the pressure that I'm putting to the nib to the paper, so you can see how hard I'm pushing, or you can see exactly how I'm blending it. A lot of times if I have, well, every time I've done a video overhead, my hand always ends up covering the image and you can't see exactly what I'm doing. So I've gotten some comments and emails asking why I don't have a direct overhead shot, so I just wanted to kind of explain why I record in the angle that I record. That being said, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with my cheek colors. I always like to lay down my R30 and R32 first, so that way when I lay down the skin tones, it blends the pinks together, so you have a nice soft pink cheek. So I'm going to start with my R32, and right over her little freckles there, I'm just going to make a circle. And then I'm going to take my R30 and we're just going to bring that color out a little bit. So I'm just going to make that circle a little bit bigger. And then we'll go ahead and color her lips later. So we're going to set those aside. And now I'm going to take my E13, and right around where her hair is and all these little flowers, we want to make a little bit of a shadow. So I'm just going to kind of trace around . And as I get down towards the bottom part of her cheek, it's going to taper off and it's going to get a lot thinner. We don't want the shadow to go onto her chin, because then it's going to look like she has a harsh line, which can sometimes look like a beard. So I'm just going to come down on the side of each of these little strands of hair that are coming across her forehead. And then I'm going to come down along the side, and again underneath on this side of her cheek, and then coming down along the side and where it tapers off. Now I'm going to come underneath her eye a little bit, so that way it brings her cheeks out and adds a little bit of dimension to her face, because we want the cheeks to kind of be standing out. So it looks like her eye is casting a little bit of a shadow underneath on the top part of her cheek. So now I'm going to take my E11, and I'm just going to come out a little bit more. So I'm going in the exact same spots that I did with that E13, but I'm just coming out a little bit more, so that way slowly but surely we're starting to fill in her face. So once I get down here, where we stopped right here with the E13, I'm going to drag this down so it gradually gets a little bit darker. Or I'm sorry, it gets a little bit lighter. So again, I'm going to pull this color down. And then right across her eyelid, on the top part right here where this little crease is, I'm just going to pull the color over. So now with my E00, we're going to do the same thing, pulling the color through. This time I'm going to come all the way down to the chin. And her cheeks should be fully covered over. And you want to make a little shadow underneath her nose. So now we're going to take that E000, so E000, and I want to get a nice blend on right along the edge of that E00. And once I have that nice blend, then I'll go ahead and fill in the rest of the white. So I want her eyes to be light, so I'm just going to do that one little stroke over, and then continue pulling down that E00 from the top, and then we're going to just do one swipe over her nose. So sometimes when I'm coloring, well, most of the time when I'm coloring, I always go back and put another coat, because at times, sometimes when you first put down the ink, you don't have enough color on the paper in order to really get those colors moving. So I always go back and repeat it, and I start right where I started with the E13, and I work my way down in the exact same order in the exact same places. So I'm going to take my E13 and add that shadow. And then I'm going to take my E11 and do the same thing, pulling the color through. And now again with my E00. So since we have some color down, the ink will really flow if you do that heavy flick to really brush it out. And you'll get a nice transition between the colors. So then I'm going to take my E000, and I'm just lightly going to go right over where I haven't colored in yet. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of shadows to her nose, and we're going to finish coloring in her neck. So right underneath her nose here, I want to deepen that shadow. So I'm just going to come out a little bit with my E13, and then also her head's going to be casting a shadow onto her neck. So we want to make a really deep shadow right below her chin that's onto her neck. And you want to kind of go in that round, so it kind of dips down, so that way it has that same shape as her face. So now I'm going to take my E11, I'm just going to darken that little shadow underneath her nose, and I'm also going to go right across where that little line is for on the bridge of her nose. Then I'm going to continue pulling down the color from her neck. Now let's take that E00. I'm happy with the way the shadows are on the nose, so I'm not going to go back and add anything with my E00 right in that area, but I'm going to continue pulling it down on the neck, and then again with my E000 until it's completely filled in. Now I'm going to go back and just add that shadow, so that way we can get those colors moving if it looks a little blotchy. So I added color with my E13, and now I'm going to go with my E11. And again with my E00, and again with my E000. So now for her lips, what we want to do is I'm just going to take my R30 and I'm going to color in her lips completely. And then I'm going to take my R32 and I just want to shadow on the bottom of the top lip and right in the center of the bottom lip, so right in between where her two lips are. Then I'm going to take my R30 again and just smooth it out a little bit so that way it blends. And then I'm going to take my E13 and I'm going to go right in the middle, just kind of tracing that line just to really define that shadow. So a lot of times when you're coloring pink, it's really hard to get that really dark tone, and you can't, normally I would use a gray to deepen a shadow with any color, but pinks and oranges and yellows, it really doesn't work, and you have to use a brown tone in order to make it a little bit deeper. If you use a gray with a pink, it kind of changes the color and it looks a little purpley. So after you lay down your E13, we don't really want it to be brown, we want it to be a darker version of this pink. So I'm going to take my R32 and go right back over it, covering up that brown and making it a darker version of my the R32. So now I'm going to take my R30 and again just go right over So that way it has a really nice smooth transition, and we are finished coloring. So I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial on coloring skin. I'm going to put a couple links down below to some other blog posts that I have that kind of help you figure out how you want, how dark or light you want your image to be. So I use the exact same color combination for my skin, whether I'm coloring a light version or a dark version, minus or add a light one, so the E40s, or if I wanted to go a little bit darker, I would add like E25. So I will link to that post below. Again, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and me coloring this new stamp set from the Spellbinders May Stamp of the Month Club. Have a great day.